Talking Sports with GBO and Amp. My name is Charles Gilbert, and on today's show, we're going to break down the top 5 NFL quarterbacks of all time. But before we do that, I want to give a special thanks to Frank Paris with Hormone Health and Weight Loss for sponsoring our video today. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, click the bell to get notified anytime we come out with a new video. So, Anthony, let's go ahead and dive into these top 5 quarterbacks of all time.
I couldn't single out just one quarterback here coming at number 5 just because the list is so long, it's so debatable, and there's so many good quarterbacks that we've seen over the past years in the NFL. So I'm going to give you a few options to choose from. You can make your own. I got Dan Marino, John Elway, Brett Favre, and Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
So that's his number 5 guy. For me, my number 5 guys, I'm the same way. I've got a top 4 list specific to those people that we selected, but in terms of top 5, I've got a few guys as well. I've got Drew Brees, I've got Dan Marino, I've got Johnny Unitas, Roger Staubach, and then Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers can definitely move up if we can get him another Super Bowl this season. So we'll see where he stands after this season.
So number 4 for me coming in is a guy I know far too well being a Panthers fan. We used to see him twice a year, and that is Mr. Drew Brees. He had a long career tenure in the NFL. He was a 1-time Super Bowl champ and MVP that year. He won the Super Bowl, 13-time Pro Bowler, second in a lot of stats. He's second in all-time passing yards, completion percentage, passing touchdowns, and passing yards per game. He's finished in second in that. And how long he played in the NFL, I believe that's the reason I put him in at number 4, because he played consecutively good all those years he was in the NFL. He might not have started out so good in San Diego from 2001 and 2005. That's why I think they kind of traded him away, because they didn't think he was the QB of the future for him. But once he got with New Orleans, you know what happened there with Sean Payton.
Even coming out of Purdue, he was still a highly rated quarterback. Yeah. And you look at his size and stature, everybody lists him at 6'1". I mean, he's really coming in at 5'9", 5'10". But you look at his career at the beginning with the Chargers, no one would have thought that he would end his career second all-time passing, second all-time in TDs. But I think for him going into the right system with Sean Payton, winning 1 Super Bowl as well was big for him. But 2, overall, his career was very, very successful. Yeah. And like you said, he's in your top 4 of all-time.
Yeah, he didn't have the biggest arm. He couldn't get out of the pocket to run well like some of these other quarterbacks, but I'm pulling him in at number 4.
Okay. For me, I went with John Elway. John Elway is one of my all-time greats. I think about, his first 7 seasons in the league. He took his team to the Super Bowl 3 times. In 97, 98, he won back-to-back Super Bowls. So he went to the Super Bowl 5 times, won 2 out of 5. Now, I go back to that first 3 Super Bowls that he went to under Dan Reeves, and I think about his wideouts. I think about his running backs, and you look at some of these other ones we're going to talk about, and they surrounded themselves with some really strong players, some Hall of Fame players. John Elway, that's who they had, was John Elway. And I think about some of those other games with the Cleveland Browns going against Bernie Kosar and those final minute drives that Elway made to win those games. I think he had over 40 game-winning drives in his career and had over 6 in the playoffs. So, coming out of Stanford, too, he was a 2-sport athlete, could have went and played in the major leagues, decided to come play in the NFL. You think about the arm talent, one of the best all-time in terms of strength of arm, could really blister that ball in there. So, too, for me, number 4 is John Elway.
Not a bad choice there. Number 3 for me is my mom's favorite quarterback of all time, and that is Mr. Joe Montana. He's one of the most highly accurate quarterbacks of all time. He went to 4 different Super Bowls, never lost a single one, 4-0 in his Super Bowl tenure. He's a 3-time MVP winner, 16-7 all-time postseason record. From 88 to 90 in the postseason, he had a passer rating of 100 or more in 8 straight games, 8-time Pro Bowler, 2-time MVP. I believe he was considered the GOAT before the other 2 guys on my list that I'll be speaking about.
Yeah, Joe Montana, 4 for 4 in the Super Bowls. I don't know if we'll ever see that again. Also, too, you look at the team, like I was talking about Elway earlier, and you think about the guys that Montana surrounded himself with. You look on the outside, you had Rice, you had Taylor, you look at tight end, you had Clark. You look in the backfield, fullback, you had Tom Rathman, which, as a young kid, I try to, play like Tom Rathman. I wore the number 44 as a kid growing up, playing fullback and linebacker. And then you look at the tailback at that time was Roger Craig. So he surrounded himself and Bill Walsh, one of the greatest football coaches of all time. You think about those things that Joe Montana, and then you incorporate Montana into that mix, the accuracy that he had with the football, also the mind that he had. It just, they was unstoppable, under Walsh and Montana. So Montana's actually my number 2 guys. So since we already talked about Montana here at number 2 and number 3 for him, we're going to move to my number 3, which is Peyton Manning, coming out of the University of Tennessee, top quarterback in his class coming out of high school. He goes to the University of Tennessee, breaks almost every record at the University of Tennessee. Too, very, very thankful for that. I was telling people this, I tell this story all the time, but I got the opportunity to actually meet Peyton when I was a senior in high school. We were playing for the state championship game in Nashville. That week that we're coming up to the state championship game, it rained like crazy every day, so we weren't able to practice on the field. So my center, 2 years before that, was Spencer Riley, which was the center for the University of Tennessee when they won it all in '98, and allowed us to go to the University of Tennessee to practice in an indoor practice facility. And once we got there, I got to meet Peyton. We got to throw some routes, and too, just talking about an outstanding guy, something I'll never forget. That goes along with all the other records and things that he's broke. You look at, when he retired, he was second all time. Now he's third all time in passing touchdowns, passing yards. But he's all-time leader in MVPs.
Yep.
5-time MVP, but also too the way he changed the game in terms of making calls at the line of scrimmage. He really was the head coach, offensive coordinator as a quarterback, because he really changed the game in that way.
Yep.
You had the K gun with the Buffalo Bills where they ran at a fast pace with Jim Kelly, but when Peyton came along and was dissecting these defenses at the line of scrimmage, it really changed the game. And everybody remembers the Omaha calls that he does all the time. But, the mindset, he was like a step or two ahead of defensive coordinators in the NFL. And he really just changed the game, winning 2 Super Bowls. But, too, that really doesn't set the accomplishments that he had in the NFL for sure.
I'm going to keep my number 2 short because that is Peyton Manning. You said everything that I was going to say there. I believe I give Peyton Manning the edge for me, myself, over Joe Montana, just because I grew up. That was one of my all-time favorite quarterbacks when I was young. And I watched Peyton Manning much more than I watched Joe Montana. So that's the reason I give Peyton Manning the edge over Joe Montana there. I can't see anything different than what you just said there, so keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, not even that, too. You look at the history of Peyton Manning, and guess who is going up against, too? Our number 1 greatest quarterback of all time is Tom Brady. In the battles that those two had, imagine if Tom Brady wasn't in New England or wasn't, in the NFL. How many more Super Bowls would Peyton Manning win?
Or just not in the AFC if he was in the NFC instead of the AFC.
Yes, because it could have been a lot more Super Bowls for Peyton Manning for sure. But let's dive into our number 1. So I think it goes to saying that the greatest quarterback of all time for us is Tom Brady. And I'll just go with one stat, and I'll let you break down some of the other stats for me. I look at this. One big thing is he's been to 10 Super Bowls, which he's won 7. I don't think that will ever be broke. Heck, he's still playing. Yeah. He may get another one this year.
Add to that.
Add to that this year. So for me, Tom Brady, out and out, is the number 1 quarterback of all time.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And it took me a while to see that because Peyton Manning was my number 1 all-time quarterback for the longest. And I believe the Super Bowl when Tom Brady led the Patriots to that comeback against the Falcons, that's when I realized it really hit me that he was the greatest quarterback of all time. Just the longevity of what he's done for the past 20 years in the NFL. He leads every major stat that you could have as a quarterback in the NFL. Most passing yards, most passing touchdowns, most completions, and all those stats are only going to go up because he's still playing in the NFL. He was a 14-time Pro Bowler, is a 14-time Pro Bowler. He's a 3-time MVP, and those years he won the MVP was 07, 2010, 2017. I believe there's a few more MVP years he could have won.
Right.
But, you just can't give it to a guy back-to-back years like that in the NFL. They like to see something different there.
The biggest thing, too, is, a lot of people had doubts when he left New England and goes to the Bucs. Could the Bucs win? And I think he proved that, not only can he win a Super Bowl without Belichick. Yeah. So now it falls to Belichick. Can Belichick win? Well, so far we've seen 1 year without Brady, didn't make the playoffs. This season makes the playoffs, but gets booted out in the first round. So I think Tom Brady is the glue that held everything
Yeah.
together for New England after you look at it. So, and I think that's just something else that tops his career things of why he's the best quarterback of all time, in my opinion. So, all right, guys, that's our top 5 quarterbacks of all time. We broke those down for you. Also, what we'd like to do in the comment section, put down who is your favorite quarterback of all time. We would like to know that. So, too, also, don't forget to hit that like button. For Anthony, I'm Charles. We'll see you on the next show.